Hello and welcome to the Kim Iverson Show. Thank you guys so much for being here. We've got a great show for you, a lot to talk about. We are going to be getting into a study that shows that COVID vaccines may have caused more death. The study just came out. It is a bombshell study. They're saying that COVID vaccines, after the vaccines were rolled out, there have been more deaths when supposedly there were supposed to be fewer when they rolled those out, as well as other mitigation measures. We're going to go over that study. It is a bombshell. We're going to talk about that tonight, as well as some really big news that about Thomas Massie. We're going to be joined by a guest, Christina Tobin, later on in the show to give us the big news about what Thomas Massie is going to be up to next month. So we definitely, so that's going to be, we're going to talk about that. So stick around for that. Also, the Israel-Hamas ceasefire, the supposed Israel ceasefire deal that is not really an Israeli ceasefire deal because Israel has rejected their own supposed ceasefire deal. We're going to get into what both sides are squabbling about. What's the hang up on that deal specifically? So not just kind of, we always read these headlines and it's always, oh, Hamas this or Israel that, but we're going to get into the actual details of what is the hang up between why Israel does not want to accept the deal and why Hamas does not want to accept the deal, and where does that leave us now and the future for this conflict. We're going to get into all of that as well. But first, we do have an update on the Judge Napolitano and Scott Ritter saga that happened yesterday. We talked about it here on this show, that Scott Ritter was traveling to Russia. He ended up having his passport confiscated. He could not travel. He was trying to travel off to Russia from the United States. He was unable to do so, and they confiscated his passport. There were some reports that Judge Napolitano was also traveling to Russia and also had his passport confiscated. And I said on yesterday's show that we weren't really sure if that was true or not, that these were just kind of rumors. Well, Judge Napolitano and Scott Ritter set the record straight. Watch this.
Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. My dear friend of the show, Scott Ritter, joins us now. Scott, a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for joining us. Of course, we didn't expect as recently as 2 days ago that we would be talking like this. We thought we'd be talking in person in Russia. But before we get to why I am not there, what happened to you yesterday at John F. Kennedy Airport in New York?
Well, I was in the process of doing the final boarding of the aircraft, where right before you cross the threshold into the airplane, the airline attendants ask just to review your tickets and your passport, and I handed it to them. They motioned to go on the airplane, and suddenly three uniformed, armed Customs and Border Patrol officers came up and asked if I was, William Scott Ritter Jr. I said, yes, I am. They ushered me out of the line. Then they demanded that I give them my passport, which I complied with. And then they asked me that if this was my only travel document, do I have any other travel documents? I said, no, this is my U.S. passport. It's the passport I use to travel overseas, and I have used frequently, including to Russia. And they said, well, we're seizing it. And I said, on what authority? They said, on the orders of the United States State Department. I said, who in the State Department? They said, we don't know. I said, well, who ordered you to do this? So you obviously are, we don't know. We can't tell you. We're not authorized to tell you. They wouldn't give me a receipt for the passport. They just said, you got to contact the State Department. I said, who in the State Department? They said, we don't know. You're going to have to figure that one out. Then they got my bags off the airplane and escorted me out of the security zone into the general, where you walk in, and said, you're free to leave. And that was that.
Do you have the names of or a photograph of any of the three of them?
No, I mean, I was, Judge, in retrospect, there's much that I should have done. I was in my mindset getting ready to get on an airplane and go to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. I was focused on that. My mind was already what's going to happen when I land in Russia. And so this took me completely by surprise. And I failed to get the names of the three officers, and I failed to get a photograph. I mean, there are security systems all over the place. And, I am going to be making a call to the Customs and Border Patrol unit at the JFK to get the names of these officers. Whether or not they'll give them to me is another question.
Well, eventually you'll get all of this under the proper legal process, but they obviously interfered with your free speech rights, and you're protected by the First Amendment, and your right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures protected by the Fourth Amendment, and what the Supreme Court has recognized, protected by several amendments, is your right to travel. Was I with you?
No, you weren't. Actually, you weren't with me because I made a phone call to you earlier in the morning, recommending that you not travel to Russia. And it had nothing to do with what happened to me, and everything to do with what happened to our sponsor, Alexander Zyryanov, who, from my standpoint, tragically was placed under arrest in Novosibirsk on his way to St. Petersburg. We can discuss that in a moment if you'd like to. I did not, I like you. I consider you a friend, not just a colleague. And there was no way because I'm the guy who came to you and said, hey, Judge, you need to come to Russia. You need to do this. Let's make this happen. I got people that want to talk to you. They extended invitations to you. In retrospect, you could have gone to Russia. But I couldn't guarantee a positive outcome. And I am not going to be responsible for putting Judge Napolitano on an airplane into an unknown situation. Today, I now know that Alexander Zyryanov's team, together with the presidential administration, had cobbled together a group that was going to receive us and lead us through the St. Petersburg Economic Forum to ensure no hassles, no anything, that nothing bad would have happened. But when I initially got this information, there's my good friend Alexander. When I got the information, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if this was reflective of a change in Russian government attitude or policy. And while I am dumb enough to get on a plane and fly into the unknown, hoping for the best, I wasn't going to be responsible for that happening to you. So I made a phone call, and I strongly recommended that you not get on that airplane. In retrospect, it was
we had that phone call about 5 a.m. as I was about to leave my house. The only reason I've asked you this is because of all these news reports that the same thing happened to me has happened to you. I am deeply and profoundly grateful for your friendship, which will be a lifelong friendship, for the care and courtesy you have for me as a person and for my public persona, and for these efforts to introduce me to people who are interested in what we have to say. And I know those efforts will be unending. You have a very, very serious case against the United States State Department. And many, many lawyers will happily bring that case for you in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York, which sits in Brooklyn, but which covers events at JFK. You could also bring it in the Northern District of New York, up in New York State, where you live. You could bring it in either place. I can't imagine what conceivable defense there could be for this.
I can't imagine it either. This is a very bizarre case that he had his passport confiscated and yet wasn't seemingly charged with a crime. They just took his passport, said, you're going to have to contact the State Department if you want this back. Sounds like an illegal search and seizure from my perspective. But I'm really interested to follow this case to find out how they could get away with that. So even if you don't care about Scott Ritter, you don't like Scott Ritter for whatever reason, this is an important case to follow simply because wouldn't we all like to know what reasons they can just confiscate our passports and not arrest the person? So he's not under arrest. He's not skipping out on, some court case that we know about. Maybe there's more to this story than what we're being told, but at this juncture, but otherwise, this is a very bizarre situation. Interesting, though, that Judge Napolitano, of course, wanted to clear up his name, have Scott Ritter on the show, and clear up that the judge himself did not have this same exact thing happen to him. He did not have his passport taken. He was not told he couldn't go to Russia. He just chose not to go after Scott had his passport confiscated and after apparently their sponsor who sounds like he was a Russian or connected to Russia somehow, was arrested. So really, really bizarre. We will continue following this to find out. I've reached out to Scott. He's, of course, getting a lot of inquiries right now, talking to, I'm sure he's trying to figure out how the hell he gets his passport back. So we will hopefully get Scott on the show as this case develops to find out what cause they would have. The only cause I could find online when I researched this to find out why a person would have their passport confiscated, it had to do with the passport having been reported as lost or stolen. And so they think you might be traveling with a fake document, and in which case they take it from you and they then process it and find out whether or not it's a legitimate document, and then they would return it back to you after a period of time. But that is the only reason I could find online for anyone else who had their passport confiscated at the airport, and then they themselves were not arrested. So yeah, really bizarre, really bizarre. We'll keep following this story and find out more, but it did not happen to the judge. And I'm sure he wanted to clear this up as well, because if there is some sort of investigation into Scott, if this is actually connected to some sort of serious case, criminal or whatever it might be, I'm sure the judge wants to distance himself from that, while at the same time thanking Scott for at least the heads up, because it could have happened to him, depending on, it just really depends on the reasons why they took the passport to begin with. So really bizarre, really, really bizarre. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson show, which you could catch just by heading to that link down below, KimIversonShow.com. You can watch the full show from what you just watched, or you could catch the full show live Monday through Friday, live streams, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you then. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Never miss an episode. Never miss a clip. Never miss a segment. Thanks, guys.